In Italy, rescue teams are frantically searching for possible survivors in yesterday's bridge collapse. At least 39 people now known to have been killed. 12 others are in critical condition. The question is, could it happen here? And yes, think about how many bridges you drive over every day. The latest annual report by the American Road and Transport Builders Association is disturbing. The report released this year rates more than 54,000 of the nation's 612,000 bridges as, quote, structurally deficient. That's nearly 1 out of every 10 bridges. All right, structurally deficient is defined as one or more key bridge components, the deck, the superstructure, or the substructure, is in poor condition. There are nearly 174 million crossings on those structurally deficient bridges every single day. The average age of the structurally deficient bridges is 67 years. Every state has bridges that are deemed structurally deficient. Those with the most: Iowa has more than 5,000, Pennsylvania more than 4,000, Oklahoma more than 3,000, same with Missouri, and Illinois has more than 2,000 of these things. Those with the fewest number of structurally deficient bridges: District of Columbia, that would make sense. It's one of the smallest places in the United States. Nevada, Delaware, Hawaii, and Utah. But still, these numbers are pretty serious. You just need one to collapse. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates the country needs $4.5 trillion, that's with a T, by 2025 to improve, well, not just bridges, by the way. This is all infrastructure. This is roads, railways, airports, dams, and more. President Trump unveiled his long-awaited infrastructure plan in February. The plan is to put up $200 billion in federal government money. It's a public-private partnership, the idea of sparking at least $1.5 trillion in state, local, and private investment.
This morning, I submitted legislative principles to Congress that will spur the biggest and boldest infrastructure investment in American history. The framework will generate an unprecedented $1.5 to $1.7 trillion investment in American infrastructure. We're going to have a lot of public-private, and that way it gets done on time, on budget.
Listen, people don't vote for infrastructure.
Correct.
It's not sexy.
No.
They don't like to pay for it, but we need it, and it was a promise from this administration. Joining us now live, New York Times tax and economics reporter Jim Tankersley. All right, Jim, this was a core issue for the president. He promised to fix America's crumbling infrastructure when he was on the campaign trail. He laid out a plan in February. Where does it stand?
It's dead. There's no plan in Washington right now. I mean, at least until after the midterms. This is not something that the administration has made a priority. It's not something that the president himself has made a priority. And Congress has certainly not made a priority, which is interesting because there's probably a deal to be had at some point between Republicans and Democrats on infrastructure, but this is not going to be that year.
It's also his one area of expertise. He is a builder.
Yeah, and it should, Jim, have bipartisan support, right? The building these things is something that it's good for commerce, it's good for the economy, it's good for people, it's good for transportation. Why do we have such difficulty getting this done? The president did have a few of these infrastructure weeks, right? I think we had at least 2 of them.
We've had a lot of infrastructure weeks. We haven't had a lot of serious talk about how you fund an infrastructure bill. That's the sticking point. Everyone agrees, well, most everyone. Some people think it's not the federal government's role, but most everyone in Washington agrees the federal government needs to be doing more to catalyze infrastructure investment. The question is, does the government pay for that through taxes? Does it pay for that through, as Democrats want to, by reversing some of the Trump tax cuts? Does government basically just put a couple of carrots out there and hope that private industry comes in and fills in the rest, as the president wanted? These are big, big issues to debate, and they're not even having that discussion about how do you actually fund it.
In terms of will, why wouldn't this be a higher priority for the president? If the president is looking to serve his base, this would do just that. When you think about rural America, where there aren't jobs, where there isn't fast Wi-Fi, this would be an extraordinary fix, and it would suit what President Trump said he would do on the campaign trail far more than cutting corporate taxes. That wasn't a big promise.
Well, it was a big promise. Certainly the president promised to cut taxes. I mean, he talked more about individual tax cuts than corporate cuts, but he talked about both those things. But I think it's important to think about this as just, it's not just the president in Washington. It's also congressional Republicans, congressional Democrats. And we're not at a moment in Washington where the president is working primarily with congressional Democrats on anything. Democrats, far and away, are the ones who are more driving the discussion about doing more infrastructure that the government would pay for itself. Congressional Republicans just don't have huge appetite right now to be taking bringing up a big infrastructure bill. And again, to have that fight over who pays for it, it's just not really in anybody's interest who controls the levers of Congress right now.
All right, Jim, thanks for joining us for this. Jim Tankersley is a tax and economics reporter at the New York Times.
Politics over
Thank you.
policy, another day.
I mean, look,
Yuck.
part of the problem is it's an abstraction until the bridge you're driving on or in your community collapses, right? Or something goes wrong with your water or whatever the case is. That's part of the problem, that it doesn't feel real. And that's why we're using this as an example to say it really happened in Italy. It really happened in Minnesota. It does happen. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.